Where's the beep beep?
Yeah.
No beep beep. And then I was pissed. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the Big Dane podcast. Happy New Year to everyone. Ooh, ooh. Here we go, 2021, and we're kicking it off with Matt Warnock.
Pew, 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 pew.
Little clank cheers.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So
once
today,
again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not like I live here or anything.
Not at all. I had to fly you in from Chicago.
Chicago, it's pretty windy there, I hear.
Yeah. No, so today we're actually going to get into a lot about Matt, aka Sauniks, okay? As we know, he's a music producer. So it's gonna be like a little bit of a different format, but just truly interview Sauniks. All right. So,
I'm ready. My body is ready.
Fabulous. So why don't you just tell everyone about yourself? You know, where you're from, how old you are.
Born and raised in Philadelphia. Spent some of my childhood in Massachusetts. I am 30 years old. I've been classically trained in music since the 4th grade.
Like, you weren't like really born in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I was. Well, Bryn Mawr Hospital, to be specific.
Okay.
If we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Well, more or less like where you actually grew up, because there's so many people that actually lived in Philly. You know what I mean?
And we're born, and they're legit born.
So where did you live?
Where did I live?
Live with your parents.
So we grew up in Berwyn, mostly. We lived in Paoli for like a year or two. Okay. While we were looking for a house. But yeah, pretty much my childhood home was actually down the street from where my parents currently live. Right. So like I would occasionally take walks around the neighborhood and I would see my old childhood home. And it's changed since I was a little baby. Wow.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So now I think a little bit more people, you know, in the surrounding area will kind of like, oh yeah, Conestoga.
Yeah, Conestoga High School, mainline, rich neighborhood, I suppose. Even though my parents are not rich, there were some pretty rich people in my school, though. I'd have to say. Okay.
Cool. So you mentioned, you know, you were classically trained since you were in the 4th grade, 10 years old. So how did you really get started with the music? So that was the first instance, or like what were you playing then as a kid to get started?
Well, everyone in grade school at that age usually learns how to play the recorder. So the recorder was actually my first instrument ever. But what really started to get me deeper into music is I was pretty inspired by my sister. Why are you laughing?
Just like smiling.
But no, my sister was in she joined the choir in our elementary school. Yeah. And I really looked up to her, so I wanted to do pretty much everything that she did. So I joined the choir, and that's where the snowball started to turn.
Is that a saying?
I mean, snowballs turn when they roll down hills. So.
I don't think I've ever heard someone say that. That's when the snowball started to turn. It's kind of like that's how the cookie crumbled.
Well, but I'm not crumbled right now.
No, I'm just saying, because an alternative of crumbling into greatness.
Okay. Whatever you say. Whatever you say, Big Dane. But no, so when I went into middle school, my sister also joined the choir there, so I joined the choir there. And then when it came into high school, things started to pick up a lot. Music-wise, I started doing more of the choirs. I picked up playing guitar. I learned to play the trombone, clarinet, bass guitar, drums, piano a little bit at that point. And I was also singing a lot too, and like the musicals and stuff like that. And in high school was the point where I was first introduced to music production software in a class called Computers and Music.
So let me just stop you right there if you don't mind. So was this a class that you were able to select on your own, or this was something like almost like a requirement or like a prereq to something else?
It was an elective. You had to have so many music credits to graduate, and you had to choose a couple of music electives. Really?
So many music credits to graduate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it because of what you were trying to do, or
no?
Everyone had to have
a certain amount. I had more than enough. But
that's very interesting.
But there were most people either took guitar class or the piano class or computers and music, and I took all of them except for the guitar class because I already knew how to play guitar.
Yeah.
And the computers and music one, this is interesting because this is the teacher at the time teaches you how to create songs in GarageBand. So that was my first exposure to music production. What was funny because I think at this point I knew that something was going to come of music production, because at the end of the class the final assignment was we had to create a song or a piece of music and present it to the class.
Oh.
And on the day of the final presentations, I didn't go first, but the day of the final presentations, people were playing their songs and stuff like that. And I was getting a little embarrassed because everyone's tracks were like okay, but the song I made was actually really good. And I was like, I didn't want to be an outlier. I wanted to be like normal.
What?
I wanted to be normal because this is high school. You don't want to be a nerd or like an outsider.
Well, I wouldn't say a nerd. I'd be like, fuck yeah, like this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Bitches, like, watch out.
But I was really shy back in high school too, so I was a little embarrassed because like my song was like really good, and then like I played it and the teacher was like, wow, man, this is really good. Like
hell
bravo, yeah. So,
what did you say? Like, oh yeah,
it was a guy.
I just put it together. 30 seconds.
Pretty much said it like that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I made half a song in like 4 hours yesterday.
Also, so you're able to present in front of the whole class. So what did the class think?
The class liked it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no one. Before the presentation, I was nervous that I was gonna get made fun of or whatever.
What?
Just because it was so out there. It was so different.
So what?
But people were actually like, wow, that's good. Like, yeah, I like that a lot. Like, yeah, like people were giving a lot of praise.
Well, plus, I mean, as far as a presentation goes, right? I mean, what, you were literally just going like...
Pressing play on a computer, yeah.
Boop.
Yeah. So basically DJing. You're pressing play.
Here's my presentation.
It was. I guess you could say that was my first exposure to DJing as well.
Okay. So what about like further on? So that's how you got started, and like
in terms of.
So after high school, then what happened after high school?
Oh, so I went to college, and I didn't get involved in any of the music programs in college. I went to college for mechanical engineering, so something completely different from music.
Would you like to share where you went to college?
Yes. I went to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown.
Okay.
They did have music programs there that I could join, but I opted not to join them, and I regret that I didn't. I wish I did. But I think when I went to college, I wanted to try a lot of new things. So doing music was not one of them, because that was something I was very familiar with already.
Yeah.
So there was good and bad things to that, but I was the kind of kid who was into trying new things a lot.
We know what that means.
Lack of focus.
No, drugs. I'm kidding.
I was actually very anti-marijuana in college, and drugs and stuff like that. That's another story. I have a lot of those stories.
But so there wasn't maybe like a club or something that was like music related, or you didn't really cross your mind like.
No, I did consider joining. There was a drama club, there was choir, there was a bunch of other things.
A drama club?
Yeah, for musicals and stuff like that. And they would do performances every semester.
Yeah, but then how would that ladder back up to your like music producing is what I mean.
Exactly. So my decisions in college led me into more professional music production. And how it happened was I had joined a fraternity, and one of the brothers started playing some Skrillex songs on our house's PA system, and I'm like, wow, like, what is this music? Like, this is crazy. Like, I like it.
This is crazy.
Yeah, I liked it because I was like a Warped Tour kid at the time, and I really was into like heavy metal music and stuff like that. But this was like electronic music, but heavy, and I'm like, this sounds great.
Sounds like Sauniks.
Wop wop wop.
Get it, Sauniks.
Yeah.
But I really meant like Sonic the Hedgehog and like, you know, the old school games, like some of those electronic sounds I feel like come out in the EDM music.
Yeah, this is where the origin of the name Sauniks comes from too, in college.
Okay.
So, after I had exposure to Skrillex, I started to get into DJing, because I saw what Skrillex was doing DJing, and I started to DJ frat parties. And then that escalated to a point where I wanted to learn how to make the songs that I was playing. So I'm like, what software is Skrillex using? And he's using Ableton. And I'm like, well, I better learn how to use Ableton.
What are you doing?
And as we're recording on Ableton right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I picked it up and I started to learn how to use the software. Made like a couple of songs that were pretty bad. Probably have them somewhere in my hard drive still. But the name Sauniks, the brand Sauniks was eventually born. Started to cook in that, like, towards the senior year of college. And that name came from a nickname that the guys in the fraternity gave me. They would call me Boo Boo Sauniks.
What's a boo boo?
Like
Boo boo.
like Boo Boo the bear from Papa Bear.
What?
The cartoon.
What?
Yeah.
Was this a local cartoon in Johnstown?
No, this is it's from Yogi Bear.
Oh, Yogi Bear. Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't say Yogi Bear.
Yeah, Yogi Bear. Boo Boo from Yogi Bear. Because
Although I don't remember the characters.
Because there was an older brother in the fraternity that they called Papa Bear, and they called me Boo Boo because I was like his...
The baby!
I was like his smaller version of him.
Okay, so then, but like, where's Sauniks? Where is that coming from then? They just came up with it?
They called me Boo Boo Sauniks because of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh.
Or something like that, because I was like pretty high energy and I was all over the place all the time. I was a very busy person in college.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, in my research, 2014 was your first single, Kill, right? Then you took a little bit of break ski, all right. Then you came out with 6 songs in 2016, 1 in 2017, and took another break, and then boom, 2019, Fraction of the Dot, What's Up, and 2020, okay, 3 songs were released. So having said that, I also noticed, your logo changed a little bit. It's a little bit different, and I think now a little bit more softer with the font. So what made you decide to change the logo up a little bit?
I would change it. So the first logo I came up with was cool, and one of my friends helped design it. And the reason I changed it at first is because it was too rough and didn't quite make sense. It was hard to read. And then the next logo I made was more modernized, which was still hard to read, which I actually liked that logo a lot, but it was still hard to read. So then I reinvented it again a third time, which is the most recent. And this one is more legible, and it's more unique and just kind of cleaner. And I guess you could say that when I made my first logo, I didn't know what I was doing, and by the time I was making my third logo, I knew what I was doing. So it was kind of like a transformation of the lessons I was learning over time. And
so
stuff
when
like
you
that.
first made it, you made it yourself?
No, with the help of a designer friend.
Okay.
In my fraternity.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, and I also want to correct something for the record. You said Kill came out in 2014, and there was like a break period.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't releasing music on Spotify. I was releasing music on SoundCloud, but there were like bootleg remixes and stuff like that. So they never made it to Spotify. So I never took a break in between those songs.
Okay, so we went over this before we start recording.
It just made me think about it.
And now here we are. So I guess through the journey, at what point, kind of going to overlap a little bit. What point did you say, all right, I want to kind of continue to do this, try to pursue it a little bit more? What year would you say, or at what point were like, yo?
At what point was I like, yo?
Yo, I'm
my
good
yo,
at this
my
shit.
yo moment. So definitely right after college, I started to make songs that I was really passionate about. I knew I could make complete songs, and I got fired up about that. And I knew that this is something I wanted to do with my life, just on how it made me feel, like the process. Like I liked making songs more than playing video games. So that's a pretty powerful thing for anyone who plays video games. If you enjoy something more than video games, then it's something special there. But yeah, I knew I had a talent for it, and I had a gift that I felt I needed to share with the world. So that's when I started to get more serious and produce more music and stuff like that.
So would you say that was when you came out with that first single then, or what?
That was a part of the yeah, so when I came out with Kill way back in 2014, I was pretty certain I wanted to produce music. I didn't know what my career would look like. I knew it would I wanted to be something in music. And at a certain point, I produced a remix for an artist named Spiffy called Farewell, and that song just soared. It just took off, and it's still one of my most popular tracks. Yeah, it's still one of my most popular tracks, which to me, as the person who made the song, it's kind of baffling to me because the song could be mixed better from a production standpoint, but it's still a good song. So that song kind of led you into Spiffy Recordings. Yes, so that's how I got connected with Spiffy Recordings, which is the label I released with now. And it got me connected to Progly, who is the vocalist on that track. Like her boyfriend, my brother, and I went to an Above and Beyond concert in a snowstorm at the out in Camden, like a long time ago. That was quite a night. But yeah, like that's the other cool thing with music, is you connect with all these different people. And Progly coincidentally also went to my school, so that was easy to connect with her. But the label has brought some interesting connections. That's the thing that's the thing with like music and whatever career you pursue. You don't know what kind of connections you'll make. Like for example, with Spiffy Recordings, I got connected to Progly, who coincidentally went to my school, and then Spiffy Recordings signed an artist named Stasis, who coincidentally lives in Philadelphia, like 20 minutes away from where we live here. And we linked up, and him and I are doing a back-to-back set in 2 weeks for a live stream. So Jesse Friedland, also known as Stasis, very good producer. A lot of good talent on that label. Always looking for more good talent. Okay. It's a very genuine group of people, which is not common when it comes to labels in the music industry. I guess, now, you're getting ready to sit down to make something new. Where does that inspiration come from? Like, how do you... It's kind of like, oh, I just finished this song. How do I start a new song? Like, what's your approach, or like, what do you do? What do you do? Well, it's different every time. And if you talk to producers and songwriters in the industry, they'll all have a different answer to this question. For me personally, the songs come in different forms. Sometimes I'll start with the chorus. I'll write the chorus first, and then write the rest of the song around the chorus. Sure. Sometimes I'll start with a drum beat and then write a melody to the drum beat or a chord progression. Or sometimes I'll just like the song I started yesterday, all I had was a melody. And I built everything else around that melody because it was a really catchy melody. There's just so many ways to build out a song that it keeps it interesting, because this song, and for me, this song ends up turning into something completely different based on how it started. Like if I started with a chord progression, the song is going to turn out to be more emotional, and probably progressive. If it starts out with a melody, it's it's if it starts out with a really catchy melody, it's going to turn into being, it's going to leverage that melody a lot, but it's going to like kind of be creative throughout.
Oh shit. This is what happens when you make a template in this goddamn thing.
Just just mute the track, mute the third track.
I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, just mute the third track. Just click the number. Yeah.
I got it. Oh, hey.
Yeah, that particular song I wrote for you.
Well, I was literally just going to say, yeah, no, because, you know, just like how you're saying, like, something could change, like, you know, if you're thinking about one thing and then you start doing it, and then it's like comes out like completely different. So yeah, I mean, I knew like for my song, my intro song, I wanted like heavy bass, like here I am.
Yeah,
you know?
like you gave me like a laundry list of things that you wanted in it.
But for me, like it was definitely hard to, like I kind of like had it in my head from like other examples of like kind of clips of things of what I heard that I liked, but I mean it was hard to really put that into perspective of like this is what I actually want, because you can't look inside my brain. No. But the first round, Matt's like yeah, like come upstairs, like here it is, I got it. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And he plays it, and it's like,
it's like space music.
This is supposed to be a UFO sound. So it was like UFO, like alien, like bass drum. I was like, I'm like, let's take this out. But it was nice, like, to work together on it, because I'm like, no, not this, but this, and then he'd be like, doo-doo-doo, bloop, and then like throw it in, and I'm like, yeah, I like that. And then how about like someone's like, I don't know, I think we tried like a voice, but like I think it could have been an option, but it didn't fit. And then we just kept trying, and then before you know, like, yeah, like this is it. And for me at least, like the more I continue on it, the more I'm like, wow, I like this, but then I like this, but then I like this. And so I'm like, okay, this is it. That's it. Like, let's not like go any further, because I feel like I would like change my mind.
And I know I've been through the songwriting process so many times that I know exactly how that pans out. Like you think, especially you gave me like a list of criteria, and I made a song based on that, but you didn't like it because you didn't quite know what you were like expecting to hear. But as you started to hear, that's another part of the songwriting process where I gain inspiration for songs, is you started to hear certain sounds that I started to play, and you were like, oh, I like that, let's keep exploring this. And that's kind of how like I write music too. Like I'll hear a sound or something like that and be like, oh, I like this, I want to explore it more, and then that turns into something.
So what would you say, like how long, I guess now, since you've been, I feel like, practicing more, if that's the right word to really use for this kind of thing, but I feel like practicing is kind of like a little generalized for like kind of any kind of hobby that you want to get better at or something. So now that you've been doing it like so regularly for a while now, how long does it take you to make a new song? Mind you, he has a full-time job.
One song probably takes me on average 8 hours from start to finish. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, it depends. Rarely I'll get a song that takes me like 2 weeks to finish, just because I'm really meticulous about something or other. But like, perfect example, the song I did yesterday, I spent 4 hours on, and now it's half finished pretty much, and all I have, like the chorus is made, the verses are made, I just need to finish the second chorus and the outro. So as I started to get practiced more with producing, I got faster at it, and which is great, which is better because from a songwriting perspective, because when you have an idea in your head, you want to get it out as fast as possible before it flies away. Because if you think like a creative, you know that if you have a pretty bomb ass idea, like it's a temporary feeling, and if you don't get it recorded, it's gonna leave forever.
You mentioned in that song that you to me, when I say mention, because it wasn't discussed on this episode, in case people are like, what are you talking about? You're saying like you might want to add vocals to it, so I guess maybe tell a little bit about like how that process works, as far as like finding someone that, you know, would fit for this song.
Yeah, so that's a whole other animal in itself. So sometimes I'll purposely write songs that I know I want to have vocals on, and being able to find artists that will work with you on some songs is difficult to begin with. But when you cultivate relationships with different singers and songwriters and rappers, whatever, you find like a special relationship with someone, you start to make like good music together, because when there's chemistry with you and another artist, you create better art. So this particular song, I have a rapper friend that I'm going to, hopefully he'll vibe with it and he'll want to do it, but there's a chance that he'll listen to it. Music's a very personal experience, so there's a chance he'll listen to it and he'll pass on it just because he doesn't vibe with it. And that's okay, because if he loved it, then that's great. But if he didn't love it, then he wouldn't put as much heart into it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, that can go anyway. Like you can write the lyric, like I'll make the song and the demo, and I'll send it to a vocalist and see if they vibe with it, and the vocalist might write a top line for it, or I'll write the top line for it. It can go any which way, but usually I start with creating the beat, but sometimes I've been in writing sessions where we just start with piano, and then I make the beat around the piano and the vocals. Yeah. So you can build the song from the ground up, from the top down. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. What about like now and moving forward, like how do you educate yourself on maybe just like on music in general, how to get better, maybe like a technique or incorporating something different maybe that you haven't done before? So like how do you keep up to date with all of that now? What does that look like?
Well, first and foremost, I always stay a student no matter what level of skill I am. I'm always trying to learn new techniques and different sounds, and always like think about fresh ideas with music that could be evolutionary. But I have gotten formal training from online teachers like Hyperbits. Nico Kodiulis is a piano course that taught me how to play piano.
Nico.
And also I took a mastering course on how to master music professionally. I've had a lot of training over time. Probably a college education's worth. So
okay.
So I basically have 2 bachelor's degrees, but the music one is unofficial.
So you mentioned mastering. Why don't you just explain maybe in layman's terms of what that really means, in case any of the listeners don't know what that means.
Mm-hmm. So, in layman's terms, mastering prepares audio for commercial listening. So, to dig into that a little deeper, when a artist records their songs, they'll record them and mix the elements together, like the guitar, the bass, the drums, and then they'll send this, it's called the mix. They'll send the mix to the mastering engineer, and the mastering engineer is basically polishing it and making it louder so that when you hear it on Spotify or on vinyl or CD or whatever, it is it sounds its best for that format. So that's what the purpose of the mastering engineer is for.
Got it. Cool. Okay, and then what about is there like an artist that you like admire, or who do you kind of look up to?
Well, even today I still look up to Skrillex because he's an incredible producer just from the get-go. Also an incredible mix engineer and just all-around producer. Other artists I really look up to are a part of the Injuna Deep and Injuna Beats label. Prana is one. Very good producer and songwriter. Seven Lions was also a big influence in the shape of my sound. Above and Beyond is a pretty big influence. Their songs, some of their songs tend to sound pretty simple, but if you really the one thing I like about their music is that if you really dissect it and go into like the chords they chose and the melodies they chose and stuff like that, it's actually really clever. So okay. Sometimes I had this conversation with my brother the other day when we were talking about how there's different kinds of music that's made for different kinds of listening. And for example, some music, like a lot of pop music, is made for more surface level listening. So it's more basic, and you get the melody, you get the chord, you get everything, all the essentials up front. And there's some music, like kind of like classical music and house music and stuff like that, that's written for more minute details. So, like for more deep listening. So if you were to put headphones on and like close your eyes and listen to the song, you would hear a lot of different things going on that you wouldn't hear if you just played something on a Bluetooth speaker.
Mm-hmm. And I would say even listening in general, when you're actually listening to the instruments, that when you're kind of telling yourself like focus on the drums and then you only hear the drums, it's kind of like, I don't know, I just remember just having played the drums and violin, things like that I don't know, you kind of appreciate it, and you know how to like close everything else out so you can hear literally this only instrument playing. So it's kind of like just like a different way to listen. So
you focus your attention in on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's something that I feel like not a lot of people get the pleasure of doing nowadays with music. Is in order to listen to that kind of music that has more deeper listening, you actually have to give the song your entire attention. So you can't be browsing the internet while listening to music or doing chores. You have to sit there and kind of like listen to the music. Yeah,
and I don't know if it's because that I've played instruments that, and sure, I don't do it all the time, but like every now and then I'm like, wow, and just like kind of listening and focusing a little bit more than maybe I normally would. So I don't know if someone that hasn't played an instrument ever, if they ever think to listen like that.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
I definitely think that if you have some kind of familiarity with music, like how it's made, you can listen to the intricacies into it. Because
for me, it's like, wow, I really like that beat, or like something that's like a little unique, and then for me, I like focus in on that, and then I'm like, Matt, why don't you add this like almost like a hi-hat, like, you know,
or a beep beep,
or a beep beep. Yeah. I told him to put a beep beep in a song,
and I cut it.
He's like, yeah, it's right here.
And then I cut it because I didn't like how it sounded.
But you didn't tell me, and now we're playing it with friends in the car
on Spotify. Yeah. On Spotify, as it's published.
I was like, where's the beep beep?
Yeah.
No beep beep. And then I was pissed.
you were like, this is the beep beep song. Like, listen. You were like getting really hyped, and then the song was playing, and you didn't hear the beep beep, and you're like, where's the beep beep? And I'm like, oh, I removed it. The song is called Liberosis. If anyone wants to actually listen to the final version.
Yeah. So anyway, how about what about the advice you would give to aspiring artists? Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun.
It's kind of a loaded question. Aspiring producers like me, or just like artists in general?
Sure, producers. Maybe like they're first starting out, like, fuck, this is fucking hard as shit. Like, how am I supposed to do this? I work full time. I have a cat. I have a girlfriend.
Well, if you're struggling with those dilemmas, I would say that life is about priorities and trade-offs.
Okay.
So, if you really want to do music, you have to something has to be sacrificed in order for you to make time for that. So I've made sacrifices for my music. So I'm just gonna say everybody's situation is unique, so you have to think about what has got to give when it comes to that. But if you are truly passionate about music, you will make time for it. And if you constantly find yourself not making time for it, maybe it's not for you.
Maybe you're lazy.
Yeah, maybe you're lazy. I mean, sometimes like, I feel it too. Sometimes you have a really hard time sitting down and writing something. Sometimes the hardest part is just starting. So once you start, like, perfect. This happens all the time for me. Yesterday, I didn't feel like writing music at all, but I just opened up the software and started playing a little. All I had in my session was just the melody, just the be-do-do-do-do-do or whatever.
Yeah.
And right when I heard that melody, an idea came to my head, and I was like, oh. Then I started filling the stuff, and then all of a sudden 4 hours passed, and I have half a song made. So it's just, sometimes the hardest part is just getting going.
I will say, just being on the other side, if you will, you know, if you're living with a significant other or not, but you are in a relationship, just obviously, I don't know if this is common sense, I'm very like logical thinker, you know. So, shocker, but make sure you tell your significant other, like, how important this is for you. That this isn't just like, yeah, I just like to play music, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, no, like, this is what I want to do. So, like, obviously you have to start somewhere. So, just make sure you set time for that. But then you're also, like, obviously spending time with your significant other too, because then they're not going to be there. So
yeah, there are things in your life that are non-negotiable, and for me, I made sure Dana knew that music was something that was non-negotiable for me. Like, it was a must-have. So if you're with someone who doesn't support that,
then give them the bird.
Do you you got, it's like, this is such a deep question and extremely personal to anyone's situation, but if you have to ask yourself in that moment, what do I appreciate more, like your significant other, or do you appreciate music more? And if your significant other is becoming an obstacle in pursuing what you believe in, then that's a situation you need to get out of ASAP.
Well, I would say having more of a deeper conversation first. If you haven't already,
if you
haven't had a conversation, then you need to have that.
Yes, this is assuming you've actually tried to talk to them.
Yeah, because like it also could be, I won't get too much because we're going to wrap it up, but maybe your significant other doesn't have any hobbies, so he or she like really can't relate because it's like, well, I have all this time.
It sounds like a really lame person.
Well, I'm just saying, this sounds like a stick figure.
If you're listening to this and you don't have any hobbies, get some hobbies. They'll help you. Your life will significantly improve.
Yeah, so whatever that is, yeah. But really, just be mindful of each other, living together or not yet. And I would like to think that person would still make time for you. It just might not be as the same amount of time as maybe like it would have been if they weren't trying to do like this push with music or whatever. Yeah. So cool. Well, that's our first interview.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I will just give you one cool fact, my friends. In total,
the sky is blue.
Across the web, the internet, Sauniks has over 2 million streams. Yeah, I know.
People actually like my stuff.
Million people. 2 million. Sorry, I didn't say that right. I was like Spanglish, and then I was like, oh, that's not Spanish. Okay. Cool. So, you're asking me where you can listen? No problem. So, what you want to do is go to Sauniks.com. That's SAUNIKS.com. So, Matt has all of his links there. So many different ways you can listen. Spotify, SoundCloud. All the rest is there.
Other music services I have.
So much more. Yeah.
I do a lot of stuff.
Fabulous. And you're on Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so all the social.
Freaking social medias.
All right. And be sure to listen to this episode on the BigDanePodcast.com/podcast. If you have any questions, just stay on the website. Just go to the contact section, okay? Just send me a little message. Like, yo, I want to be interviewed, yo. Well, we'll see. Give you a little background check.
Make sure you're not a murderer.
And, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And, yeah, if you feel like leaving a nice review for me, please do. You can go to ratethispodcast.com facebook.com/the Big Dane podcast. I know. Why did I make the name of my podcast so long? I don't know, but hey, wanted to be sure you knew it was a podcast. Duh. All right, well, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you're ready to just kick off the new year with some fabulous music inspiration, and we'll see you next week. All right, my friends. Peace out.
See ya.
Have a great week.